Welcome back to So What Does That Mean? The podcast where we break down engineering, planning, and construction in plain English. I'm Brendan, the engineer.
And I'm Joanne, the non-engineer. If you're a developer, builder, homeowner, investor, or just someone trying to make sense of the construction world, you're in the right place.
Every episode, we take something that can cost people real money, real time, and real stress, and we unpack it in a way that actually makes sense.
No jargon walls, no lectures, just practical, common sense advice from the people who see these issues every day. Brendan, today's topic is one that genuinely frustrates a lot of people. Everyone. Governments, councils, industry, buyers, renters. Says Australia needs more housing. Everyone agrees with that headline.
There's no shortage of agreement on that problem.
But then someone actually tries to create more housing, a duplex, a small subdivision, some townhouses, a basic infill project, and suddenly they're dealing with planning delays, infrastructure issues, stormwater, sewer, flood overlays, council conditions, referral agencies, fees, reports, and cost blowouts.
That's what I'd call the housing supply paradox. Politically, everyone wants more homes, but practically, every individual project still has to fight its way through the system.
So is the system broken?
I think it's more complicated than that. Parts of it are under real pressure. Some rules are necessary. Some processes are clunky. Some requirements exist for good reasons, but are badly coordinated. But the biggest thing people miss is this. Housing supply isn't just a planning problem. It's an infrastructure delivery problem.
Well, that's a big claim.
It's a true one. You can rezone land, you can set housing targets, you can talk about faster approvals. But if the land doesn't have water, sewer, stormwater capacity, road access, power, or a clear technical pathway, it's not actually ready. Not in practice.
So today is about the gap between wanting more homes and actually getting them built.
Exactly. And why you need a team that understands both the planning goal and the engineering reality.
Let's start with the big picture. What numbers should people know?
The national target is 1.2 million new well-located homes over 5 years from mid-2024. That's the Housing Accord figure. It's a big number because it's meant to be. It requires delivering homes at a pace consistently higher than what the market has been comfortable producing.
And are we on track with that?
The short answer is it's under pressure. There have been some positive signs in commencements, but industry bodies have flagged that activity is still well below the required pace. The monthly approvals data is volatile. For example, in March 26, the ABS reported total dwelling approvals fell 10.5% on a seasonally adjusted basis, down to around 17,300. Queensland also fell that month.
So even with a national push, approvals are still bouncing around.
Yes, and approvals are only part of it. An approval is not a finished home. Between getting approval and actually completing a dwelling, you still need finance, detailed design, operational works where relevant, a building approval, a builder who's available, utility connections, infrastructure delivery, materials, labour, and a market that works. That's a very long chain.
Every link in that chain can delay the project, I suppose.
Every single one. That's why the Queensland Government's Residential Activation Fund is interesting. It's specifically aimed at accelerating trunk and essential infrastructure. Water, sewer, roads, the stuff that has to happen before houses can go up. Public messaging around that fund makes the core point really clearly. Before you can build the house, the groundwork has to happen.
Simple but true.
And people forget it. They think the first step is building a house. But for development, the first step is making sure the land can actually support the housing.
So this isn't just about council being slow.
No, council timeframes matter, but the bigger issue is readiness. A site can be allowed in principle, but genuinely not ready in practice. It might need trunk infrastructure. It might need stormwater upgrades. It might be flood affected. It might have a complicated sewer connection. The planning scheme might say yes, but the engineering reality says, here's the bill.
I like the idea of readiness. Can we break that down?
Sure, I think there are 3 types: planning ready, approval ready, and build ready.
Can you walk us through those 3?
Planning ready means the planning scheme supports the idea at high level. The zoning allows multiple dwellings in the subdivision. The density might work. The minimum lot size might work. This is where a lot of feasibility conversations start.
So the first green light is the rules might allow this.
Right. But planning ready doesn't mean approval ready. Approval ready means your DA package actually has everything council needs to assess it properly: plans, reports, flood assessment, stormwater information, survey data, the works.
And then build ready is a further step again.
Exactly. That's where detailed design, operational works, construction documentation, service approvals, building approvals, and contractor pricing all start to line up.
So a site can be planning ready but not approval ready,
All the time.
and approval ready but not build ready.
Also very common. That's one of the biggest traps. Someone gets their DA and thinks, great, we're done. But the approval might have conditions requiring further detailed design, civil works, service upgrades, stormwater detention, driveway changes, operational works approval, or infrastructure charge payments.
So the DA is a milestone, not the finish line.
An important milestone, but yes, not the finish line.
So why do projects keep getting stuck if everyone wants more supply?
A few reasons. First, a lot of infrastructure networks weren't designed for the density now being targeted. Established suburbs often have water, sewer, and stormwater systems built for lower density. Add more homes, you add demand.
So infill development uses existing infrastructure that may not have much headroom left.
Exactly. Second, the easy sites are mostly already developed. What's left over has constraints: slope, flood, vegetation, awkward access, narrow frontages, fragmented ownership, service issues, or neighbour sensitivity.
Third,
Construction costs and financing are still difficult. Even if planning supports a project, if the civil works bill jumps by $150,000 or $300,000, the development may no longer stack up financially.
fourth,
Professional coordination. Some developers often don't have a big internal team. They rely on consultants. If the consultant team is fragmented, issues take longer to identify and fix.
and that's where JCE comes in.
Yes, JC's value isn't just preparing documents, it's joining the thinking. Planning, engineering, flood, stormwater, access, services, survey coordination, and authority communication all need to be working from the same playbook.
Let's talk about the idea of the simple approval, because people say things like it's code accessible, so it should be straightforward.
That's a really common misunderstanding. Code accessible doesn't mean automatic. It means the application is assessed against specific codes and benchmarks, and generally doesn't need public notification unless something else triggers it. But the development still has to comply or demonstrate an acceptable outcome.
So council still has to properly assess it.
Absolutely. If the code says manage stormwater, council needs to see how. If the site is flood affected, they need to see that it's been addressed. If access has to be safe and practical, they need to see that. If infrastructure demand increases, charges and conditions may follow.
So code accessible is a pathway, not a free pass.
That's a useful way to put it. It tells you how the application gets assessed. It doesn't remove the need to actually satisfy the assessment.
Well, let's spend some time on infrastructure, because I think this is the part people often don't see until it's too late.
Infrastructure is the unglamorous backbone of the housing supply. Nobody buys a house because they're excited about sewer capacity. Nobody shows up to an open home and says, love what you've done with the legal point of discharge.
Some engineers might.
Some of us definitely would, but normal people don't. And yet those things decide whether a project can actually be delivered.
Can you give us a practical example of this?
Take a site that's going from 1 lot to 3. Great in principle. But each lot needs lawful stormwater management. If the existing drainage network can't accept the discharge, you might need new drainage works. If the site falls away from the street, you might need an easement or a different discharge point. If there's no practical discharge option, the whole layout might need to change.
And what about sewer?
Same story. Sewer might be nearby, but nearby doesn't mean suitable. The connection point might be too deep, too far, or at capacity. There might be a requirement to upgrade part of the network, or a connection might need to cross someone else's land, which brings in easements and legal complexities.
And what about roads and access?
Access can completely change the viability of a project. A driveway that looks simple on a concept plan can fail once you factor in levels, site distances, grades, vehicle maneuvering, and council standards. A road frontage might need upgrading, a crossover might need to move, a rear lot might need an access corridor that eats into the developable area.
So a lot of housing supply gets stuck not because nobody wants houses, but because the ground level details haven't been worked through.
That's it. The debate happens at policy level, but the delivery happens at the level of pipes, roads, levels, and boundaries.
So what should small developers actually do differently in this market?
First, stop treating planning and engineering as separate phases. They're different disciplines, yes, but they need to inform each other from the start.
So don't wait for council to ask for engineering before you think about it.
Correct. And secondly, get the right survey early. A bad or incomplete survey can undermine the whole concept.
Thirdly,
Test the servicing, stormwater, sewer, water, access, power where relevant. Just because there are houses nearby doesn't mean the connections are simple.
fourth,
Understand infrastructure charges and likely conditions. A DA approval can come with costs that have to be paid before the project moves forward. Those need to be in your feasibility numbers from the beginning.
fifth,
Engage a team that's good at communicating with council. You need technical competence, but you also need people who communicate clearly and respectfully with authorities.
why does communication with council matter so much?
Because authorities aren't just processing paperwork, they're assessing risk. If your application is unclear, they have to ask more questions. If your response sounds defensive, they become cautious. If your plans contradict the report, they lose confidence. If you ignore an obvious constraint, they have to protect the public interest.
So good communication reduces friction.
It doesn't guarantee approval, but it helps the assessment manager understand the proposal and the thinking behind it. That's especially valuable when a site has constraints, but also genuine development potential.
And your business psychology background feeds into that.
Definitely. Coordinating a DA is part technical, part human. You need to understand how people receive information, how to reduce ambiguity, how to frame problems constructively, and how to move a group of people toward a decision without creating unnecessary conflict.
That's a different way of thinking about engineering.
But it's very practical. A technically correct answer delivered badly can still create resistance. A clear, calm, well-structured response can help everyone move forward.
Let's put this in a JCE context. Why does JCE's model suit this market right now?
Because the market needs integrated problem solving. The housing supply push means more clients are looking at smaller infill sites, constrained sites that need careful technical justification. Those projects aren't suited to a narrow, single discipline approach.
So if someone engages a lodgement-only planner, they may still need everyone else separately.
Yes, exactly. And they might end up coordinating those people themselves. At JCE, planning and engineering are under one roof, and we manage external services like survey where needed. One coordinated pathway, not a collection of disconnected reports.
And information request responses within the agreed scope are handled without extra charge?
Yes, within scope. And that's an important part about how incentives line up. We want to lodge a good application because we stand behind it. We're not hoping council generates more hourly response work. We want to solve the problems up front.
Well, that sounds pretty obvious, but it's not always how the industry operates.
It really isn't. A lot of models are built around hourly response work. That's not inherently wrong, but clients need to understand it. If every council question triggers extra hourly fees from multiple consultants, the risk sits with the client.
And the client is already carrying enough risk.
Exactly.
What do councils actually need from applicants to help housing move faster?
Complete, coherent, and honest applications. Complete means the right forms, plans, reports, and supporting information. Coherent means the documents are consistent with each other. Honest means the constraints aren't hidden or glossed over.
So don't pretend the flood overlay isn't there.
Don't pretend the stormwater is someone else's problem. Don't lodge a site plan that can't practically work. Don't rely on phrases like to be resolved at detailed design for things council actually needs to understand at DA stage.
But sometimes things really are detailed design matters.
Yes, absolutely. Not everything needs construction level detail at DA, but the bigger risks need enough information for council to be comfortable the development can actually be delivered.
So not over designing, but not underthinking.
That's the theme of good DA work.
Can we bring this down to earth with a smaller example? Because national targets and government funds can feel pretty removed from someone's actual
Let's say someone owns a decent sized residential block and wants to create 3 dwellings or 3 lots. Not a tower, not a major subdivision, just a sensible infill project. Exactly the kind of things governments say they want more of.
But then the real questions start appearing.
Is the driveway compliant? Can service vehicles access if needed? Where does stormwater go? Are there flood levels to consider? Is there room for detention? Can sewer be connected without a major extension? Are there easements? Will the new lots have practical building areas? Are there overlays? Are infrastructure charges payable? Will council require operational works later?
And suddenly a simple project has a lot going on.
That's the reality. Most housing supply is delivered one project at a time. Each project needs a practical pathway. We can talk about 1.2 million homes nationally, but the actual work happens at the level of a site plan, a drainage strategy, a sewer connection, and a council assessment.
The National Housing Challenge gets very local very fast.
Very fast. And that's why smaller developers need good practical advice, not just optimistic advice.
I hear this a lot. Maybe I'll wait until conditions improve. Construction costs come down, council gets easier, the rules change. Is waiting the best strategy here?
Sometimes it's sensible if the numbers genuinely don't work. I'm not saying rush into bad projects, but waiting for perfect conditions is risky because perfect conditions rarely arrive.
So what should someone do in the meantime?
Use that time to get prepared. If the site has potential, understand the constraints, get the survey done, get a feasibility review, understand the planning pathway, identify the infrastructure risks. If the project isn't viable today, figure out what would make it viable. Different yield, different layout, staged approach, different product type.
So preparation doesn't mean committing to construction.
Exactly. Good preparation gives you options. Poor preparation means you're just reacting when the market finally moves.
And in a tight market, the prepared projects get traction faster.
Always. When builders, consultants, and authorities are busy, clear, and well-prepared projects move to the front. A messy project is just easier for everyone to push down the list.
What does a good early development package actually look like in 2026?
It has a clear planning strategy, survey that's fit for purpose, a site plan that actually responds to the real constraints, enough engineering input to show flood, stormwater, access, and services aren't being ignored, a realistic understanding of infrastructure charges and future approval stages, and a team that can communicate with council in a calm, practical way.
So the standard has lifted?
It has. The days of lodging something vague and hoping council helps you work it out are largely gone. Councils are busy, infrastructure is stretched, neighbours are more aware, costs are higher, there's less room for sloppy early work.
And that suits JCE's model?
It does, because we're built around practical problem solving. We don't just ask what report is needed, we ask what decision the client needs to make, what information council needs, and what technical risks could hurt the project later.
That's a more useful question.
A report isn't the goal. A decision is the goal. A pathway is the goal.
Let's give people a concrete takeaway list.
1. Don't confuse zoning support with project feasibility.
2, don't confuse DA approval with being build ready.
3. Check infrastructure early. Stormwater, sewer, access, water, power, where relevant.
4, if there are overlays, don't panic, but don't ignore them either.
5. Make sure your planning report, site plan, and engineering advice are all telling the same story.
6, understand how information requests will be handled before you sign the engagement.
7. Communicate with council like you're trying to help them assess the application, not like you're trying to win an argument.
That last one is very you.
It matters. The fastest path through a complicated process is usually clarity, not aggression.
If you're listening and you're in development, what's the biggest thing that's held up one of your projects?
Was it council, infrastructure, finance, builder availability, a consultant handover gone wrong? We genuinely want to hear those stories because they're the real lessons.
Leave a comment on YouTube or send us a message through JCE.
And if you're looking at a site right now, don't just ask whether you can get approval. Ask whether this site can actually be serviced, built, and delivered at a cost that makes sense.
So to wrap up, Australia wants more homes. Queensland wants more homes. Councils, developers, buyers, and renters are all under pressure.
But the projects that actually succeed won't be the ones with the best slogans. They'll be the ones with the clearest pathway from planning idea to infrastructure reality.
And that's the JCE approach.
We take the planning opportunity, the engineering constraints, the authority requirements, and the client's goal and bring them all together into one practical strategy.
If this episode helped you think differently about housing supply and development approvals, share it with someone trying to make a project happen right now.
Subscribe on YouTube, follow us on Spotify, and connect with us on LinkedIn.
Thanks for listening.
See you on the next one.